Welcome to our video over the default system dashboards. In this video, we are going to talk about the various system dashboards that you can find in Decisions, dashboards that are there by default that administrators have the ability to look at and see a lot of great and useful information about the Decisions system. We're going to highlight a lot of the very important ones and very useful ones so you just have an idea of what's there and what you can do with it. So first, there are a number of these default system dashboards that you can find in Decisions. This is something that only administrators have access to, so just regular designers in the Decision system will not be able to see these kinds of things because they don't have access to the system folder in Decisions. Only administrators have access to it. So that's just one thing that's important to note. So, but otherwise, there's a lot of steps in Decisions and things in Decisions that have a system-wide impact. And these custom dashboards do have the ability to show us useful information on these things so we can track and view that data. Things like run flows for lists, for example, that run things in multiple threads with the processes being asynchronous. They're not easy to just track and look at in the debugger when you run it right there. So a system dashboard becomes very helpful. Other things too, like code compilation, data structures, even just accounts that are accessing decisions can all be viewed in these various dashboards. So you'll find all these dashboards by going to the system folder, expanding administration and expanding system tools, and then you can see a number of useful dashboards in here. And we're going to talk about what you can find in Event Viewer, in Flow Management, in Logging, and in System Validation. Now, between version 8 and version 9, just in case anyone is looking for information on, one or the other, both of them do have these system level dashboards. Most of them are going to be pretty similar, maybe some slight differences here and there on the visuals, since version 9 did have a lot of upgrades to things like this. So version 9 may look a little nicer sometimes, and a lot of the screenshots I'll be showing in this presentation will be from version 9, but version 8 should run very similarly. There may be some slight differences in the available dashboards as well as versions get upgraded and updated over time. Some of them may be removed, or some of them may be completely moved to version 9 projects, which is the next point I want to make here, where sometimes in version 9, since we have projects now, some of these dashboards may be accessible either only in the project view or also in the project view. So you may actually be able to open up a project, expand the manage folder, and find more information on the project level for specific items. Things like project health, that'll show you the health of that specific project and details on that, as well as some of the other things that we'll be showing may also have an associated dashboard in the project section. But we're going to go and look at a bunch of the very useful system level dashboards that are available in this version here. So the first category I want to look at is on the folder for the event viewer. This is the first one at the very top. When you expand and look at the system tools, you'll see event viewer. And this one has a lot of dashboards to give good information on. So you can see across the top in the blue bar, you'll see a number of dashboards depending on how big your screen is across the top, and any that don't fit will be under the more category. So you could expand that and open up more of them. And I'm going to highlight a few of the pretty important ones and useful ones that you may see as you're going through the list to, access different things and find things that may be useful. So the first one is system activity. This is the default one when you first open the event viewer. And this just simply displays a snapshot of any of your usage statistics every 30 seconds. So it'll take a new snapshot every 30 seconds. You can kind of see the event time every 30 seconds running here. And it'll give you details on how many flow starts have happened, how many thread job starts have happened, and things within that 30-second time period. This also corresponds directly to the usage and the usage details files that you can find in your file system logs. This will just show the current log of the usage and the usage details. This is just the usage. If you right click on any one of these, you'll be able to get access to the usage details, which details even more information about the flow starts and things like that. So you can easily look at things. This is a great place to look to just give you a little snapshot of what's happening if you're noticing that slowness is taking place. So you can easily look and see, well, maybe the slowness is taking place because there are a lot of thread jobs starting in this point right now. And you can get that information, and see what's here in this dashboard to give you a little bit of an idea of what's happening or where you can even start looking if you're trying to troubleshoot things. The next couple dashboards are pretty simple, but could be potentially very useful because it does give you good information and historical information on login history. The first one being a historical record of all the accounts that have logged into your system. There's a couple charts up here based on the users and how many times they've logged in and things, so you can see that information as well as a report. And then the next one will actually show details on any of the currently logged in users. So you can have an idea of all the users that are currently logged into a system at any given time. So in this case, there's only one person currently logged into the system when the screenshot was taken, but there may be 30 people, and you can see all the details of them, what machine or server they're on, and different things like that as well. So especially if you have multiple servers, you can easily check that and have an idea of that data when for specific accounts and specific users. Now we're going to skip a couple that are kind of basic, like your boot history, showing the details on, when the process was restarted and booted up and things like that. Because the next three after that are vastly important. The code buckets, code bucket install history, and code compiler results. All of these have details related to code. And so if you're not aware, whenever you create a data structure in decisions or when you first install decisions and things, all the code that's required gets compiled, right? And so it compiles all this code so that it can be used. And this dashboard shows all of the files that have been compiled over time. They're grouped in things accordingly, and you can kind of see on the right side, there's the projects that they fall under and different things like that. But these are the actual files that have been compiled for these things. By right-clicking, you do have the option to edit or delete these files, but it's something you should absolutely not do unless you know exactly what you're doing and you're prepared for the repercussions of what could happen. So in most cases, though, you're not going to want to touch this. This is just some information so you can kind of see the details. This also directly correlates to the file system location that holds all of these files in it, which you can find in the decisions, decision server, instances, control, and then there's a folder for code buckets that'll have all this code inside it as well. The next important dashboard dealing with code is the code bucket install history. This is just simply a report that shows when new code was compiled and installed into the system. So this is just useful to track your history and as well as a couple extra things like the sizes and other little small details about the code when it was installed and things like that. The next one is very useful for troubleshooting any issues that deal with code because the code compile results will display all of the code compiles and things that have been compiled and if they've experienced any issues. So if you had a failure in compilation, you can look here and you'll see, hey, there was an error here, if that was true or false, and then it also detail the error message so you can kind of see some useful information there. You can clear results from this report if you'd like, but otherwise it's there to give you that useful information of the potential errors that happened. And again, you could go to the file system and find logs on this kind of stuff and check your code and things like that in the file system as well. But this is the place where if you have a code compile error, come and look here and you'll see the details on that potential code compile error and what could have happened. So this or the logs will give you that information and it becomes very useful. Now, another dashboard that could become useful here that's a little adjacent to the code ones is the data structure status, because this will show every single data structure in decisions. Data structures are the things that are kicking off those code compilations, but this will just show all the details of those data structures. It'll show whether or not they are compiled, if they're loaded or not, things like that. You'll see that details there. From there, you can right click these and you'll see some of the normal actions that you have when you right click just a designer entity in decisions, or if you right click your data structure in decisions, you'll see the ability to edit that data structure, move it, some of the other options and things that you can typically do. And everything you'll easily find in here. So this is a great place as for an administrator that's going to want to have a good bird's eye view of everything. This is where you can do that at, and something that's very useful to find that access. Now, another incredibly useful system dashboard that we have access to is the thread jobs dashboard. So anything in your process that will run something asynchronously, like a run flows for list step, a start linked flow async subflow, scheduled jobs, all of these things will create a process that will run on a queue in a thread job. And so this thread jobs dashboard is a great place to look at that information and see what exactly happened here. when are things set to be running, what is the order that they're set to be running in when they do start running, how many queues do I have with jobs loaded up and ready to go on them, and things like that. Gives you all the great details on what is actually running. Typically, any steps in decisions that are going to cause something to be built and run on separate threads, you'll have the ability to name the queues, so you can actually name them something unique so that you could easily find them, easily sort through the data and see it. In this screenshot, you can see an example here of the default queues that are available with a lot of the jobs underneath them, and they are grouped by the queue name. So if you do have a process that allows you to rename the queue, you could do that and easily find it because it'll group all of those processes underneath that specific queue. But essentially what this does is it'll display all of the active ones as well as all of the ones that are queued up, ready to go, or waiting to run. And those details can be found inside this dashboard, so you can look at that. From these, you can also start them right away. Maybe you have something in waiting and you have some downtime, so you know that you want to just run this process now instead of waiting for it to run later. You could easily do that. You also have the ability to clear a job. If you'd like to clear something that's maybe hanging a process up, it's not running, or it's running really slowly, you can clear that job so then the other jobs that are waiting for it can run as well. So there is some adjustability that you can have here also, if you want to manage or adjust things. There's also a large number of default items in here. Those you can't permanently clear or stop or anything, but if you need to run one early or stop one so that your process can move on, you can do that. But it will just come right back and run when it's supposed to run next. Another dashboard here that can be useful sometimes, a little rarer in comparison to some of the other things, is the report execution statistics. This will give you a lot of details on the reports in the system, both historical reports that have been run in the past as well as more current reports. So you can kind of see a lot of details on the reports and when they were run and viewed for various reasons. Flow steps that run the reports, people that open up the dashboard to view the reports, all of that data gets tracked there. So you can see highlighted in the red is the same report viewed 3 different times by 3 different people, and you can kind of see the data that's there. But it shows the rows that are in memory and stored and everything like that, so that you have an idea of what is actually happening in those reports and when they got viewed and things. So you can easily see that data. It does track anything that's not in memory, so things that are like linked directly to the database, but it does also track things that are in memory, like your custom reports and things that you're building and displaying in places. But then otherwise, you can just see which views have been or which reports have been viewed the most, which reports are running a lot of rows and things, and how often they're appearing. And in some cases, if you're having trouble finding where there's any slowness in the system activity, for example, then and it's related to something to do with reports, then this may actually give you a leg up and understanding of what could be happening. If there's maybe a specific report that's causing a lot of slowness, you can view those details. One more useful one here is the upgrade history. Here it just shows all the upgrades that have happened on the server. It displays the versions of any past upgrades as well as the dates when they were upgraded. So if you look here, for example, you can see an example of a server that went from 8.9 eventually all the way up to 9.3, and the various times that was upgraded and when those processes went through. This can definitely be useful if you have some kind of breaking change or an issue that happened after an update. You could easily look back and see the different versions that you had. So you know if there was a problem that happened from one version to the next, then you can hopefully work that out and figure out what that problem is and how to work around it or fix that issue. The next category of dashboards that we can find is the flow management dashboard. So this is right under the event viewer dashboard. The flow management dashboard will show a bunch of dashboards that deal with the flows in the system and how you can adjust and manipulate those. The first one is just the flow management dashboard, and this is the great overarching one because it has a lot of different things and useful things inside it. So at the very top of it, you'll see the number of recent flows that have run as well as any stored flows. Stored flows are basically flows and decisions that are waiting to be processed for some reason. Things that have like a pause step that's pausing them. Assignments is the most popular form of these types of steps. As the assignment is waiting for someone to complete, it stores the data in the database until the process can get complete. And then once the process is completed, then the data is cleared and removed. But it does store the current running data through it so that that data doesn't get lost and can easily be accessed if the assignment does not get completed. And that information can be found here. It shows you all the stored workflows. The report that's directly underneath that will actually show all of these workflows, any flows and decisions that have a stored process in them, some step that is paused and in waiting will be displayed here. And by clicking on any of the entries in these workflows, the bottom report will be populated by all the steps in that flow. And then those steps have different actions that you could use to access them or change values in them or learn more about what's happening in them. You have abilities like restarting at specific steps. So you can go backwards to an earlier step and restart at that step. You can run the process after certain steps. If there are steps that have multiple pathways, when you do start after those steps, you have the ability to choose which path it goes down. So you can change that. You can also change the flow data that's currently running through it. So if you want to change a value that's trying to get sent through the process because of like an error or something like that, you could easily do that, right? In cases where this may be useful, let's say there's an error that it gets experienced later on the process and you want to rerun the process, as long as there are different things like assignment steps that were pausing the process, you may not have to start right at the beginning. You may be able to just go to a previous step and restart. That way you can fix the error and then roll it back a little bit and try running it again and see if it goes through without any issue, that kind of thing. Also, like I just mentioned, you could easily change that flow data. So let's say someone fills out an assignment, they make a mistake, they send the assignment, and it goes and gets sent to the next part of the process. Well, you could go backwards, change some of that flow data and run the process again, or run a part of that process again, and that flow data will be updated as needed. Another dashboard that you can find in the flow management section is for running flows. This one's useful because it'll display all of the flows and decisions that are currently running at the time that you open this dashboard. But then from here, you can get information on those currently running flows. Biggest one being that flow tracking ID. If you're trying to track a process and follow what's happening in that currently running flow, maybe you're looking through the flow management dashboard for a stored workflow. If you can get the flow tracking ID, then you could easily do more things with that to test it and know how to fix it and make adjustments and things like that. And so you can easily get the flow tracking ID for flows that are currently running. Especially useful if the flow gets stuck and you need to go fix that flow, you could easily use that to help find what that flow is. By right-clicking options in here, you do actually have the ability to turn on the profiler or turn on tracing from here, so you can actually start profiling a process in the middle of the process directly while you're working on it. So that could become useful too if you're trying to profile things. And then you also have the ability to kill the flow. So while the flow is running, you can just end it right then and there. For example, you have a process that's just taking too long. You don't want it to keep running, and maybe it's going to be taxing on the system or potentially taxing on the system or maybe block certain things. You could easily stop the process. For example, you have a scheduled job and you notice that that scheduled job is taking 30 minutes to complete, but it's scheduled to take place every 15 minutes. So that process will get overloaded very, very quickly. So instead, you can make sure that you kill the flows that are running, try to make it more efficient, and then try it again and see if that scheduled job can now not take 30 minutes and should be running faster or smoothly. But you can easily kill or end the flow without having to wait for that process to be over, and that kind of thing. Now, there also is a stored workflows dashboard in the flow management section. As I already mentioned about stored workflows from the flow management dashboard, this is more of an expanded version. So you will see all the details of the flows and everything in the report, the size of those flows, the details of who created them and things like that. But it also comes with additional graphs and things that show useful information about the primary flow that it's in and things like that. So you have more information about those flows through some charts. From here, you can end these flows as well. You can just end these flows right there. You can clear the data. Let's say you have like a process that upgraded or changed your flow, and all of the old things that have not been processed yet you don't care about and you just want to clear them up, you can clear all that data. Obviously, if you do care about the data, you don't want to clear it until you're sure that everything in the quote unquote old version have been updated and changed. But otherwise, you can continue on with the process and you can easily clear that data if needed. Now, one other thing that's going to be very important to note, especially if you're using that flow management dashboard to change or manipulate anything, is you have to be very careful of any steps that will do some kind of permanent change. Things like writing or saving to a database or sending a message out to someone. Anything in those kinds of that kind of realm of the process will need to be tracked and kept careful watch on. So let's say, for example, you have a database writing step, something that takes in data from like a form or something and will write and save that data to the database. Well, if you were to kill that flow after the process got written, or maybe you try to rerun this step or roll something back, but this record has already been written, it will not cancel that written record. It will not remove that record for you. That record will be written in your system and then it'll just try to run again. And so it's very easy to unintentionally end up with a bunch of duplicate entries of something like this if you're just simply trying to make some changes and not actually thinking about those data implications. So just keep this in mind if you do have anything that's going to be writing to a database, sending a message out to someone, saving something somewhere that does not get undone by just killing a flow or restarting at an old step. Those kinds of things do have to be manually fixed. Go into the database and remove that entry, before or after you make the change and things like that. So you always have to keep that in mind and be careful of that. The next dashboard in our section here that's a little bit underneath the flow management dashboard is the logging dashboard. Now this is very huge because this will display all the records of any flagged events and things that have happened on your system based on the log settings that are capable. So in your system by default, warn level, error level, and fatal level logs are always logged and tracked. Anything else like the debug level logs or the information logs do not just always get tracked unless you put them on. But if it is one of these log types that can get tracked, as soon as it tracks that error and that error message occurs, it will place a record in this dashboard. And so this is a great way to just get a little bit of a view of what's in those log files and where those log errors may have happened so that you can kind of work through that and get an idea of what's happening and then maybe go ahead and fix it. It's useful for short-term, in the moment checks on errors and things like that. Not necessarily a full system assessment. Not really the place to go if you've been experiencing errors for days and you need to go and look at those errors. The main reason being is this will only be showing the current log file that is being written. So if I just booted up a brand new instance and nothing has happened in it, and I open up this report, I'll probably see nothing because nothing has actually had a chance to error out. But if I do have my process running and I notice an error, I can immediately go to this dashboard and see what happened here. And then I can easily learn that information. Right? What a lot of people tend to do is especially when they're testing or in training, is they'll see an error and then if they close out of it, they'll just run the flow again to see that error again. But really, you could just go to this dashboard and view that error and find it. Again, this won't help with historical data. So if your logs have rolled over, then you're going to have to look at the historical logs or one of the last 10 logs to get saved to find the information that you're looking for. But at its base, you could at least come here for a quick idea if something happened in your system right then and now. You could easily look for that error message. The last dashboard section I want to talk about is system validation. This is the last page in the system tools that you'll find. But system validation will give you details on the various locations and potential issues that may have happened in system validations anywhere in your process. So you can see here, there's the name of what happened, some problem on the assessment truth table. Here's a problem on the I9 PDF generation. Here's a problem in format SSN, right? The name of whatever happened as well as what the type of issue is. And then you can left click it to view that full details on the error. So it's a great place to just give you a good little view of the potential errors and things that have happened on the system level, as opposed to just having to look for those specific errors. In version 9, you could easily look for errors and details on the reports through health and through some of the other project level ones, but this is a good system-wide one that will show you across the whole system where are these various validation issues and things like that, so you can get good and useful information. Otherwise, there are a few other dashboards here and there. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. Other ones could easily be explained on our documentation site. So I encourage you to explore the rest and find a little bit more, but these are the main ones we wanted to highlight today, just to showcase a lot of the very useful ones and most powerful dashboards at your disposal by default in any decisions instance. One last dashboard we wanted to take a quick look at is the import history. This import history will show information on all the various import actions that we have, as well as reporting on all of the entities that were imported. So you can find details on things that got imported in the system. That will conclude our video over the system dashboards available in Decisions. Thank you for watching.